I present to you my dear friend, Michael S. Johnson.
Thank you for that nice introduction, Andy. Your Eminence, Archbishop Dimitrios, the other eminences, members of the clergy, members of Leadership 100, and guests. Oil is the lifeblood of the world's economy. It fuels the almost 1 billion combustible engines in the automobiles of the world. Oil is 36% of the energy that the U.S. uses every day. Natural gas is 25%, coal 22%, so that 83% of our daily energy needs are fossil fuels. The United States has 4% of the world's population. We use 20% of the world's oil. The world's daily consumption is 92 million barrels, and that's going to increase because we have an increasing need for energy as the world progresses. Until 1960, we produced 90% of our consumption, and we only imported 10%. 45 years later, we were only producing 40% of our consumption, and we were importing 60%.
Yeah.
That was 10 million barrels a day that we were importing. There were times in 2005 in that era when oil was $100 a barrel. We were spending $1 billion a day importing oil. Oil is affected by world events. Until the middle 60s, oil was $5, $10 a barrel. But then the first surge was the Yom Kippur War, where we took the side of Israel. And the Arabs put an embargo on us, and oil shot up to $60 a barrel. In addition, that was when the Iran-Iraqi war occurred. The next spike was the Gulf War, and it was followed by 9/11. But the biggest spike of all has occurred in the last 5 or 6 years. It is where China has become a world power, and their need for oil has exceeded expectation. It also is because of the Iraqi war that caused an oil, part of the reason why oil increased in price. And world demand from other countries that have emerged. Hugo Chavez in Venezuela has caused some problems. When Katrina happened, it shut down every refinery in the Gulf Coast. And that was for a period of several months, which caused an oil shortage. But finally, the worst of all is the Israel versus Iran crisis. OPEC is the organization of petroleum exporting countries. There's 12 of them. And you can see in the first column the number of barrels in millions that each of these companies contribute. They control 30% of the world's daily oil production. By doing so, they also establishable price. You can see in the third column that Saudi Arabia and Iran and Iraq, with the huge oil reserves that they have, and compare that to the anemic amount that we had, only 24 billion barrels. I can't think of a worse place for 60% of the total oil reserves of the world to be located than in the Middle East. Iran is developing a nuclear bomb. Israel, which is 500 miles westward, has been threatened by Iran, and their annihilation has been threatened. Of course, Israel has responded that they will bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran. Israel has no friendly neighbors. Syria, Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, Egypt, are all Muslim countries. The Persian Gulf is where 40% of the daily needs of oil for the world, that's where it passes through. From there it goes through the Strait of Hormuz and then on to world markets in Asia and Europe. We have our 5th Fleet stationed at Bahrain. About right there. The Iranians have threatened that if war breaks out, that they get bombed, that they're going to mine the Persian Gulf. Our 6th Fleet and aircraft carriers are not defensive weapons. Probably would attempt to clear the mines that the Iranians are going to put in the water. That's real confrontation, folks. This is a powder keg. Whoever controls the Middle East and Iran is attempting to become the dominant power in the Middle East. They control the supply of oil which runs the world. They have become a national threat. And I hope that the sanctions that we're imposing will settle the matter quietly. Oil has more uses than just making gasoline. All plastics are made with oil. Roofing materials, solar panels, plastic auto parts, clothing, there's fleece, and polyester, and nylon, asphalt for roads, pharmaceuticals, children's crayons, paint, fertilizer, and petrochemicals. Last year, Mr. Labaris told us that as CEO of Dow Chemical, that his company uses 850,000 barrels a day of oil to manufacture petrochemicals such as those on this slide. In 1981, IBM introduced the computer, and the computer revolutionized the world's economies. In a like manner, about 7 or 8 years ago, a new technology was introduced in the oil business that has revolutionized oil and gas exploration. It's called horizontal drilling. Previously, we drilled vertical wells, and you can see that it drained the oil from the nearby reservoir. The new technology is horizontal drilling. A horizontal well now can be drilled away from the vertical. It can go out maybe 2 miles, 10, 12,000 feet. The diameter of that hole is that big. It's 5 inches. And the accuracy is amazing. The bit can stay in a reservoir that is only 10 feet thick. They can direct the azimuth and have it go in any direction. It can go straight, it can go up, it can go down. It's an amazing technology that increases the recovery of oil 4 or 5-fold. One of the pioneers in developing the horizontal technology, George Mitchell from Houston, Galveston. Mr. Mitchell's father had a 7-syllable Greek name, so he's a Greek American, and we should be very proud of him. He helped pioneer the horizontal drilling technology in a field in Texas called the Barnett Field. Horizontal drilling began in the Rocky Mountains in northwest North Dakota. It began in the field shown in green near the North Dakota border. It was in Montana. And this is the first place in the Rockies where horizontal drilling was working. And this field was developed, has developed 550 horizontal wells. It's 40 miles long, has reserves of 250 million barrels. It is one of the largest oil fields in Montana. This happened 2003, 2004. I was involved in part of that drilling, and I used it as a model because I thought that maybe I could duplicate the geologic setting that produced that oil in another part of the Williston Basin. And if you look to the right, there's another square there that is in yellow, and that is the area that I've selected. And the next slide is a blow-up of that spot. On this slide, the red dots are wells that have been drilled to the same reservoir that was producing at that first field. It's called the Bakken. But these wells were drilled 15, 20 years ago, and they did not have the benefit of the new horizontal technology. There were 10 or 15 wells there, and it looked like a promising area. 2 of the wells that are shown in the darker dots had an outstanding characteristic that I thought made them look very similar to the oil wells in the field to the west. So my partner and I got some financing, and we leased 38,000 acres around that one well, and we were able to lease about 6,000 acres around the other well. We put together a report that showed our prospect to 15 or 20 oil companies in the Rocky Mountains, and with great difficulty we reached the end, and we were having difficulty in getting it done, but finally we were able to sell our deal to a company called EOG Resources. EOG Resources is a spin-off of Enron, and Enron agreed to drill a horizontal well. It would be the first one in this area. The 2 red dots, the 2 green dots shown there are those same 2 wells that I had recommended to EOG that they drill. Both of those wells drilled in 2006 were oil discoveries using the horizontal method. Today, Marshall is the largest oil field in North America. 6 years later, It has a size of about 80 to 100 miles north and south, east and west. It covers about 15,000 square miles, making it the largest oil field in size in the whole world. Now this is a map of the same area in a different mode. Apartment complex in China. And those vertical lines are wells that were drilled down to a hotspot, an accumulation of geothermal energy. Those wells bring up the heat, the geothermal heat, and it heats and cools 690 apartment units, which is about 5,000 to 10,000 people, get all of their energy from the geothermal source. This is the largest volcano in North America. It's 40 miles wide, the cauldron is. If you wanted to think about using it as an energy source, we can't do it. A lot of you people have been there. It's Yellowstone. Yellowstone is the largest volcano in North America. Biomass. Biomass is algae. Algae are tiny plants. Biofuels, you've heard of ethanol, made from corn. And then biomass is wood. Dams. There's not very many dams being built, but we still have hydro power. Now, in closing, what I've done is I've developed what I call my future energy demand chart. And what I'm trying to do is show you how I believe our future energy needs will be met. The line on that drawing is shows an escalation of the use of energy in the U.S. What I did is I converted all the energy types to oil and gas equivalent. So that coal and natural gas and nuclear, I changed all that to equal barrels of oil. And if you look at 2013, what we use is the equivalent of 52 million barrels of oil. 18,600,000 is crude oil. The rest are the other energy types. Now this is 2013. Oil and gas at the bottom in green is 36% of our energy needs in the U.S. You can see that I've separated out the imports because imports got to be almost half or more than half of our crude oil use. Here's where I think oil is going to go. I think oil is going to go up to 40%, and then it's going to drop off. As you can see, I cut off imports in about 10 years because I think in 10 years, I think we will be self-sufficient. Natural gas. Natural gas is a clean fluid. It doesn't have, it's not the polluting energy like oil is and like coal is. So I've left natural gas to be the same all the way for the next 50 years. Coal is going to go down. Coal is the dirtiest fuel that we have. It pollutes the atmosphere. It causes global warming. So you can see I've decreased it to maybe 10%, and even 50 years from now it'll probably be less than that. Nuclear is a question mark. We haven't built a nuclear plant in America in 38 years. I don't know if there's anybody in America that knows how to build one. And we wouldn't know what the cost is anyway. So I left nuclear the same. I left it at 8%. And the same for hydroelectric. We haven't built a lot of big dams recently. So you see the void that's there. And that void is the renewables. That's the wind, solar, geothermal, it's electric cars, it's gas-driven cars, natural gas, it's battery-driven cars, it's hydrogen. And I've given it 13% in 25 years. 25 years from now, 13% of the energy that we use every day will be renewables. In 50 years from now, that figure will be 49%. Those are my figures. There's a lot of estimates put in this, but I think the general thing that you should need to know is that it's oil and gas that is going to be the bridge going forward to renewable energy that provides the time for renewable energies to become the size that we need. It gets cold in North Dakota. And then the reason I'm showing this is that in the wintertime, the activity really slows down. And so I was there for 3 days one time when it never got above 20 below zero. This is old style development of oil fields. This is Bell Ridge Field in California, developed in 1911. There are 2 wells for every acre, 2 wells per acre. This is Partial Field in North Dakota. There's 1 well for every 640 acres. And the other drilling is underground. It's a horizontal drilling that I mentioned to you earlier. They blend in the color of the equipment with the blended in with the landscape. There's no cement. All those roads are just scraped. They just scrape the plant material off the top, and that's a wheat field just behind that pump. Whoops. At a meeting that was held in Houston 3 or 4 months ago, the Halliburton executives, and Halliburton is the largest service company that does fracking jobs in the fields. But they brought a pitcher full of the new frac fluid they had, and he poured it into a milk glass, and one of the executives drank it. So I don't think we're going to have very much trouble in that regard with fracking. A lot of people have concerns about fracking, but I hope that they'll see that it's not as serious a problem as we believe it is. And then I want to close and just say a word about global warming. I belong to a study group in Denver. It's called the Climate Change Study Group. And we have about 125 members. They're chemists, they're physicists, they are engineers. We have weathermen who report the weather on television. We have geologists, geophysicists. We have people from academia, have people from state institutions. We have federal people. We have the chief scientist of NOAA as a member of the group. I believe global warming is a complex science. There's 70–80% of the people that belong to my study group, they really believe that it's anthropogenic. 80% of the people in this group believe that we are causing the global warming to occur. But there's 10 or 20% that are the doubters, and that's where we stand. But the point I want to make about global warming is that we don't want to get a carbon tax. I was in London 4 months ago. The price of gasoline in London, England is $11 a gallon. They do that for no other reason than to get their citizens to quit driving cars. They don't want to pollute the atmosphere. That's why you have carbon taxes. That's why the rest of Europe have similar taxes. What would a tax like that do to our economy? That's a concern that I have. I've really enjoyed giving this talk. pardon me, this is about the 17th time that I've given a talk like this, and the purpose is to let people know that we've really improved the energy picture in America with some of the new technology, and that going forward we think that it'll even get better. Thank you for your attention.